Africa, tomorrow's youth. So do not only sit in these rooms, do not only wear your wonderful ties, do not only tie your geles, make sure that you know you are the custodian of the African story. And now, ladies and gentlemen, that African story has been powerfully told in 10 years of AfriLabs existence. 10 years that we want you to look at in this video.
Africa's largest innovation conference is coming to the United Nations office.
10 years ago, in Accra, Ghana, a small group of dreamers came together with one belief: that Africa's innovators deserved a home to connect, collaborate, and change the continent's story. That dream became the AfriLabs Annual Gathering, and this is our journey. From the bustling streets of Accra to the vibrant energy of Cairo, the AfriLabs Annual Gathering began as a meeting of minds, hub leaders, innovators, and partners who dared to imagine a different Africa.
The first AfriLabs Annual Gathering was in Accra, Ghana in 2016, and it was hosted by a community member hub, iSpace Ghana. And it was quite a pivotal moment for us in terms of owning our platform. Now, prior to the first gathering in Accra, our community used to convene in other conferences, international conferences sometimes, but then we decided that it was time to really own our platform here on the continent, and that's how the AfriLabs Gathering was established. Now, since then, we've hosted it in different African locations, as it is our policy to rotate it to a different country every year in order to showcase the unique innovations in that country, in order to give the opportunity for different ecosystems to host the African continent and the global ecosystem broadly. So basically that's what inspired the AfriLabs Gathering, and since then it's been quite an exciting journey. It's been a lot of lessons learned, from the first one in Accra to the last one which we held in Cape Town, South Africa.
Then the world changed. 2020 brought a pandemic that silenced travel, but not our spirit. The gathering went virtual, proving that our community was stronger than distance.
Attending the AAG during the virtual year was a bit of a dampened spirit, because the nature of what it is that we do, the gathering was more of a physical thing. See, so not being able to see people, feel people was not the same, right? But we understood that that was what needed to be done at that moment in time. But I think it also showed you how innovative we could have been and how we needed to adapt. So I think it was more of adaptability and innovation more so than anything else. But that community feel was not the same.
The annual gathering needs to continue, not just for 10 years, mind you, but for another 100 years, because it's very rare to see an event that brings all Africa together. Mostly you see regional events, cultural events, but AfriLabs brings all Africa together to discuss how innovation can transform this mother continent and bring it forward. So yes, we need to continue this annual gathering, and we don't just talk about innovation, we also talk about partying. We dance a lot, we drink a lot, and it's very fun meeting with friends.
In my eyes, the biggest transformation of the gathering has been how large it has become. The first gathering, I think, were less than 40 of us. There were members of AfriLabs, maybe 25 to 30 of them attended. Today you have well over 300. That's enormous. That covers almost every country on the continent. It has really also helped to catalyze and gravitize the corporate and as well as the development sectors to be part of this program. And I think that's been a good thing.
From Lusaka's call for connectivity to Kigali's charge to accelerate the digital economy, to Cape Town's uniting of innovators from every corner of the continent, the gathering became more than an event. It became a launchpad for policies, partnerships, and investments that ripple across Africa.
This this year's AAG is a classic case of this because in partnership with UNDP, the AAG brings all the local innovators and we as UNDP bring the global perspective. And we're bringing innovators, we're bringing investors, we're bringing different players that come with both global and local perspectives. It's a great place to connect.
I see a vibrant marketplace full of youthful energy, buzzing ideas, prototypes that are being tested, and a spirit of community that says Africa's future is rich, is hopeful, is bright, and it's layered with culture, with color, with character.
AfriLab attendance has helped me to do some of the things that I couldn't have done just sitting down in my Lagos office. I've been able to meet people, I've been able to meet people that I can collaborate with, I can host events. I have resources, people that have come to me are sharing their knowledge and information. AfriLabs Annual Gathering gave me that opportunity.
New voices need to be heard and conventional leadership needs to be brought to the forefront. And then there's this version of the gathering I believe that we still need to be tapping into, and that is bringing, emerging leaders as well as seasoned leaders together for change. I think it's this. I do believe that we're working towards it, but if we're really honest with ourselves, we haven't achieved it yet. And so I think it's really worth experiencing in the next 10 years.
In 2025, we gather in Nairobi, the Silicon Savannah. This is not just a milestone, it's a springboard. 10 years of connection, 53 countries, over 500 hubs, and we are just getting started.
Well, over the next 10 years, I really see the conversations moving from development and the challenges that we face to celebrating big wins during our annual gathering. Hopefully we'll see a situation whereby the conversations that we have during our annual gathering are more of a celebration and a thought leadership in terms of how we're really championing innovation globally and not just within Africa. I see the gathering evolving to a platform where from the gathering we're basically launching support to the world, to the globe. So it's not just support from outside in, but support from
Did you feel those goosebumps? Did you feel those goosebumps? I don't hear you. Did you feel those goosebumps? A round of applause. And here's to another decade of us changing the future of this continent. So a big round of applause as we meet today under the theme Africa's Innovation Future, Policy, Partnerships, and Progress. Now, ladies and gentlemen, one of the things that you learn is that if you want to go far, we go together. If you want to go fast, you go alone. And we intend to go far. So we haven't come here on our own. So the idea is that we recognize the presence of those who've helped us to get here, which includes Timbuktu and UNDP. Thank you so much for that partnership. In all the screens and the branding behind us, we have all these partners with whom today would not have been possible. We also recognize the new board chair, Renee Parker, and the new board. A round of applause. Certainly, by working together, we're making sure that we are creating the Africa that we want to see. But now, for a key opening speech, I'd love you to put your hands together for someone who will tell us how this journey has been. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Senior Ecosystems Engagement Manager at AfriLabs. Jen leads the continent's most impactful convenings of technology and innovation ecosystems. She drives strategic engagements with governments, international bodies, and key stakeholders to strengthen Africa's innovation capacity. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Jennifer Okeke Ojedu.
Hello, everyone. Hello? This works. Hi, everyone. I know we're all very seriously ready for a very serious event and a very serious session. I'm here to dissuade you of this notion. We are here, I'm joking. We're here for a serious event. However, I'm sure you've seen from the videos, this is a community, this is a family gathering. We are happy to welcome our partners and standing on all existing protocols, which I will read in a minute. However, because it's a family gathering, please permit me for 2 seconds to be a bit off script. Welcome to everyone. This is a family gathering. This is a family gathering that does change the world, so it's a really important family, but it's a family nonetheless. So, before I go too far, I would like to read out my protocol sheet. Because, again, it's a family gathering. We're not quite used to this, so forgive me. I would like to welcome Your Excellencies, heads of state and governments, honorable vice presidents, prime ministers, deputy heads of government, Your Excellencies, members of the diplomatic corps, honorable ministers, deputy minister, and senior government officials, representatives of the African Union Commission, regional economic communities, representatives of the United Nations and the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, and the United Nations Office of Nairobi, distinguished leaders of Africa, the board, and co-hosting partner, Timbuktu, presidents, chief executive officers, and founders of innovation hubs, startups, and partner organizations, representatives of diplomatic agencies, multilateral institutions, members of academia, civil society, private sector, distinguished speakers, panelists, and moderators, and members of the media. Ladies and gentlemen, innovators, entrepreneurs, and friends of the African innovation community, good morning. Okay, that was really long. So we've done it officially. Good morning, everyone. Hopefully we have done it in the order that it was supposed to be done. If not, please forgive us, it's a family meeting. My job here today is to get you excited about the AfriLabs Annual Gathering. I'm so happy that we are here at year 10. This is actually the 6th one that I have planned. So I'm so grateful to every single person here today who's here to witness what we have in store for you. Our theme this year is Africa's Innovation Future, policy, partnerships, and progress. For the last 10 years, we have worked as a community to push the innovation landscape a step further every year. This gathering gives us an opportunity for innovators, policymakers, and world changers to sit in the same room and have conversations, not theoretical conversations, but conversations with people who have their boots on the ground. This year, with those wonderful captains of industry, we have put together for you an event with 6 wonderful tracks, which are the Policy and AI track. Our track champions for that are Ubulu Africa, Tech Buzz, J-Hub Africa. Our investor track was put together by the AfriLabs Connect Deal Room. The AfriLabs Connect Deal Room is a platform that leads for viable investments on the continent. Green and Blue Economy track was put together by ROG and Sote Hub. The Creative Digital Economy was put together by Baraza Media, 360 Creative Hub, and the Aga Khan University. And the Health track with the caption, Catalyzing Investment in Health, was put together by Velgro Africa. The Makerspaces track was put together by the Twende Hub. We have other partner sessions and things of the likes happening as well. Now, to give you a run-over of what's happening today, this is the opening. You are here. Next, we'll be moving to the tracks immediately after tea break. Tea breaks will be happening outside the tracks. After that, we will have the gala. I hope you have brought your clothes. I hope you have brought you a fun attitude. I'm sure you saw from the video that it is a fun thing waiting to happen. Then, on day 2, we have plenaries. We still have some tracks going on, and we'll have an after party with details on the website and on the app. I hope we see you all there. Now, before I go down the stage, I would like to ask everyone politely and kindly to stand up. For the last 10 years, we have created a change on the ecosystem. For the last 10 years, we have helped people grow. For the last 10 years, you can say we have created an earthquake because we made the ground shift. I know in some contexts, an earthquake is not a beautiful thing, but in my language, it is called Ola Majiji. It means to shake the ground. And we have, as AfriLabs, shook the ground for the last 10 years. So I want you all, I know I said we're here for a serious event, but for a few minutes, we're a family. So I want you all to put your feet together on the ground till you hear a rumble. We're creating an earthquake. That's what we've done for the last 10 years together. Can you hear it? If you can hear it, that is Ola Majiji. So that's what we're going to do for the next 10 years. So please, hit the ground one more time, because we, as a nation, are changing the landscape. We, as a nation, are changing the world. And welcome to the 10th AfriLabs Annual Gathering. Thank you.
Continent we call Africa. Now, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to ask you to take a look at the screen, because joining us virtually for the opening remarks, of course, is the AfriLabs Executive Director, none other than I'd like to call her Her Excellency, Anna Ekeledo. Over to you.
Distinguished guests, partners, community members, innovators, governments, and friends of Africa's innovation ecosystem, Karibu Sana. Today, as we gather here for the AfriLabs Annual Gathering 10th anniversary, in partnership with Timbuktu by UNDP. We stand not merely as individuals from over 70 countries within and outside Africa. We convene as custodians of Africa's collective destiny, as builders of a shared vision, and as believers in the boundless potential of our continent. Our theme, Africa's Innovation Future, Policy, Partnerships, and Progress, is not just a phrase, it's a declaration of intent. It reflects who we are at AfriLabs and what we stand for. Now, for over a decade, AfriLabs has championed Africa's innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem, connecting over 500 innovation hubs in 53 countries and more than 200 cities. Our mission is simple but transformative: to build a thriving innovation economy that drives inclusive growth across Africa. We envision an Africa where innovation is not just the exception, but the culture, where policy enables progress, where partnerships amplify potential, and where purpose directs prosperity. If we are to rise as a continent, we must align our courage, our collaboration, and our conviction to drive innovation that not only changes lives, but impacts generations to come. Now, when AfriLabs began in 2011, with just 5 pioneering innovation hubs in 4 African countries, we're not merely building an organization, we're building a movement rooted in the belief that Africans can build the solution that Africa needs. From those modest beginnings, we have grown into the largest Pan-African network of innovation hubs, startups, investors, governments, academia, and development partners, all united by one conviction: that innovation is the bridge between Africa's potential and Africa's prosperity. Now, through this community, our community, we have nurtured thousands of innovators, created jobs, influenced national and continental policies, mobilized funding, and shaped global conversations about Africa's role in the digital economy. But as we look at how far we've come, we must also be bold enough to admit it is not enough, because Africa's future demands more from us. Now, Africa holds everything it needs to rise. We have everything we need: the world's youngest population, unmatched creativity with a history of ingenuity and innovation, and an abundance of resources that can power the world. We have the power to build a continent where every citizen has access to quality education, affordable healthcare, food security, and a dignity of meaningful work. These, however, are the basics. The goal is to build a prosperous Africa with inclusive generational wealth for all. If we are to rise to the occasion, Africa's economy, currently valued at around $3.4 trillion, could grow to more than $16 trillion by 2050, driven by innovation, trade integration under the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, and digital transformation across every sector. Imagine an Africa where our innovators lead in artificial intelligence and green technology, where manufacturing capacity of Africa rivals the world's best, where our creative industries and digital services employ millions, and where our youth transform challenges into billion-dollar opportunities. We have the potential to lead global conversations in these areas and more, not as beneficiaries, but as trailblazers, contributors, and leaders of global progress. That vision is not far away. It is within our grasp. If we act with unity, with strategy, and with urgency, we can achieve this dream. The question before us is simple: will we rise to the moment? Now, let's speak honestly. For all the talk, all the funds, and all the effort, the sleepless nights, the long days, the sacrifice of comfort for cause many of us here have invested, we are still not moving fast enough. We have the brilliance, we have the talent, we have the resources, yet we keep giving away our power, waiting for permission, for validation, and solutions from everywhere else but within. So as we embark on these next 3 days of delving into sessions, making connections, and co-creating, I challenge us all to ask ourselves 3 critical questions. What will we do differently? How will we lead courageously from within? And how will we ensure that this gathering becomes not just a conversation, but a catalyst for immediate action? What we need, all of us here today, is to own our power to transform this continent. We don't need another validation, another know-how blueprint or solution to give us permission to act. We already have these. What we need is alignment. Alignment with people who share the same vision as us. Alignment with individuals, businesses, communities, and causes. We need to put our differences, egos, and competition over perceived scarce resources aside. What we need are more coalitions and alliances. We are all powerful individually, but together we are earth-shattering, history-making, transformative. We are a force that cannot be reined in. Together, we will achieve this Africa we all dream of. Now let this gathering be our turning point. Let every handshake spark new partnerships. Let every session birth new ideas. Let every connection lead to creation, collaboration, and concrete impact. When we leave this space, let us carry with us not only inspiration, but intention. Not only dreams, but decisions. Let us commit to take bold, audacious decisions backed by bold, audacious actions. Now, AfriLabs was born to connect, to empower, and to accelerate the builders of Africa's future. Now it is time for all of us to embody that mission, not just in words, but in work. As I close, allow me to express deep gratitude to the Timbuktu Initiative for reminding us that visionary ideas can come from Africa and scale globally, for inviting us from the birth of such an ambitious, game-changing initiative to be part of. Together, we'll achieve our collective vision for the continent. To the UNDP leadership, the UN Nairobi team, and the government of Kenya, thank you for standing firmly with us in building this vision. And to all our sponsors, partners, track champions, community leads, and the AfriLabs network, thank you for your trust, your energy, and your belief in what we can achieve together. We appreciate all the work you've put in to make this a success. Thank you to the Kenyan ecosystem for hosting us for this important milestone, the AfriLabs Annual Gathering 10th edition. History will be made here in Nairobi over the next 3 days, which will impact generations to come. Finally, to all our guests here today, thank you for showing up for us. You are now one with us, and I'm so excited to see where this journey will lead us. Welcome to the AfriLabs Annual Gathering 2025. Karibu sana.
We are inspired, we are encouraged, we're excited. We see the vision for the future, and in the strong words of our executive director, she challenges us and asks us what the path we will take is. Now, Anna could not join us because she had a recent addition to her family, so we congratulate her on that. A round of applause, please. Before I make my next introduction for our next welcome speech, please do note that there are maybe chairs behind some other seats. If you cannot find a seat, please do make yourself at home there. The seats, I assure you, are extremely comfortable. So now I'm going to introduce someone who definitely needs no introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, she is the co-founder of AfriLabs, and she has grown AfriLabs to expand from a grassroots initiative in Cape Town to being a global initiative, a global social enterprise impacting over 50 million people in 24 countries. That's no small feat. In addition to that, she's a passionate advocate for inclusive innovation and women's economic empowerment, and she continues to drive social transformation across Africa through leadership, investment, and strategic partnerships. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for our new board chair, Renee Parker.
Good morning, everyone. All the speakers before me, especially Jen, really got me moved me. I don't know how you can sit in this room and not be moved. I don't know, are you feeling it? Are you feeling something? We are in Africa. We are Africans. You know, I'm not sure if it's my age, but I've been feeling more and more emotional lately, you know. So coming to Kenya this time around, having the AGM yesterday, meeting with the community, walking into the space today and seeing all these signs and all these banners and the words, the 10th AfriLabs Annual Gathering just keeps like popping into my eyes. And I had a moment of just feeling really emotional about it. The fact that we can stand here and celebrate this means that people before us had to sacrifice, had to fight, had to give up their lives in some moments for us to have this opportunity. I stand on all existing protocol. Apologies, I should have started with that. And the theme this year is Africa's innovation future. I don't think it's the future, it's the now. Every single person in this room represents that. Every single person in this room represents 10 other people, 100 other people, 1,000 other people, millions of other people. The fact that we can sit together here, if we just count all the people we've impacted through our work, through the kind words we say to someone, you know, I think that's something we really neglect. We just think of our work as my day-to-day job. But even just being kind to someone is also impacting someone. And on the continent, I find when I travel to different countries and people maybe, you know, don't speak my language and I don't speak their language, but when we smile at each other, we are talking. And there's something so valuable in that. And when I just think of AfriLabs and each time we have a gathering, which is only once a year, the amount of smiles that you see, even if we didn't see one another for the whole year, we didn't speak to one another, maybe didn't follow your page and looked at what projects you are doing, but when we get together here, this moment in time is so special that we're only going to have it once. This is the 10th year, next year is the 11th year. So as we are here today, as we are gathered together, we are sitting in this historical building. I think it's a beautiful sentiment to celebrate our 10 years of having our gathering and looking forward to the next 10 years. And yesterday we had our annual general meeting. And I just asked the audience, how many of them were still youth? I think I should ask that today. How many people are still youth? Here we go. Wow, half the room. I'm so happy. This is why we are here. Let's not forget why we are here. And for those of us that are a little more seasoned, even though we're still in our hearts, we will always be youth. If you're from this continent, you never get old. So even though we're a little more seasoned, the fact that we are still here and we still decide to come and we still decide to pitch up and we bring our all, there's something that we can say for that. And that's what makes us unique. That's what holds us together. That's what binds us together. And I'm so encouraged, I'm so inspired that I know that the next generation, not the next generation, the generation of now, those of you sitting in this room that are still dreaming, that is thinking about the next thing that you want to do, that you want to create, and you're thinking of the struggles and, oh, I need somebody to give me an opportunity, I need someone to open a door. Just look around you. There are people in this room that can do that very thing that you need right now at this moment in time. And I would like to challenge all of us. Over the next 3 days, let's take a moment to talk to someone you've never spoken to before. Make sure they're a little younger than you. Make sure you're encouraging them, you're inspiring them, you're giving them the motivation, and maybe some money. I think that would be great. I think that's what they all need. They need resources and unrestricted resources, let's be clear. The young people want to innovate, they want to take risks, and they need us to help them do that. And so today, let's all enjoy this day together. We are a family. Jen said it over and over. And whether we met 1 second ago or 10 years ago, it doesn't matter. We are a family. So enjoy the day, and thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, our board chair, Renee Parker. And Renee, just to let you know, we are only as young as we redefine youth. And for me, youth is redefined every single year. This year, I started learning about artificial intelligence. I feel so young. You know, so it's not about the age, it's about exactly what you're learning and adding to your wisdom at any point in time. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have a special address by the Cabinet Secretary for Cooperatives and MSME Development from the Government of Kenya. Honorable Dr. Wycliffe Oparanya, of course, he is the elder of the Order of the Golden Heart, otherwise known as EGH. Now, he is the Cabinet Secretary, of course, as I said before, for Cooperatives and MSME Development here in the wonderful country of Kenya, and he is a seasoned economist and public speaker. He is dedicated to advancing Kenya's cooperative sector and driving inclusive growth through innovative MSME policies and sustainable enterprise development. Ladies and gentlemen, with a resounding AfriLabs round of applause, please welcome Honorable Dr. Wycliffe Oparanya, EGH. Is the Honorable here on his way? Okay, just stepped out. All right, not a problem at all. All right, ladies and gentlemen, in that regard, I will jump straight to the goodwill messages, and I'll bring the Honorable back on stage the moment he joins this gathering. Engineer Michael Oluwagbemi, of course, Emeritus Partner, Lofty Inc. Allied Partners, is a serial entrepreneur, venture capitalist, and innovation ecosystem leader. He is the founding partner of Lofty Inc. Capital Management and co-founder of Winnovation Hub, a former AfriLabs board chair. He has championed startup growth and investment across Africa. Michael currently serves as program director of the Presidential CNG Initiative and board member of the Rural Electrification Agency, otherwise known as REA, driving Nigeria's clean energy transition and industrial development. Ladies and gentlemen, please warmly welcome Engineer Michael Oluwagbemi, Emeritus Partner, Lofty Inc. Allied Partners, to give the first of course, our supporting words.
Good morning, AfriLabs. Good morning, AfriLabs. This sounds very official. Looks very, very, very official. First and foremost, I want to stand on existing protocol, but I'm told that when we all keep standing on it, the protocol might just fall apart. So I will use the opportunity to, of course, to recognize some of my leaders that are here. First and foremost, my former boss, and is still my boss, my mentor, Vice President, His Excellency, Yemi Oshibajo. Thanks for coming, sir. Please give him a round of applause. Also, I want to use the opportunity to welcome everyone here. Madam Chair, that's a ring to it. Congratulations on your election as the board chair of AfriLabs. Please give her a round of applause. Thank you. And to all our leaders, the head of secretariat, Anna, who couldn't join us, but we have the COO, and important leaders. I see my brother, the CEO of Naseni, coming in. Khalil, you're welcome. Thank you all for coming. It's nice to be back. I've been away from the African gathering now for 2 years running, of course, as a result of the exigencies of public office. But it's a pleasure to be back once again at AfriLabs. I bring felicitations of the AfriLabs Board of Trustees, which I'm also a member of, and to say that I'm really elated that we're gathering once again here in Kenya, here in East Africa. And of course, this gathering holds special opportunities for us, being the thanks. I learned in the last 2 years, this organization has experienced quite a bit of growth. When I look around in the room and I see the eminent personalities, and I see the expansion of the members, we've gone from mere 40 hubs when I was leading this organization in Ghana when we hosted the first African gathering in 2016 to well over 500 today. I believe AfriLabs deserve a round of applause for that. Thank you all, thank you all. We have come a long way from Accra. And of course, I remember the struggle of putting together that first African gathering. I remember us getting to Accra not even knowing how we were going to meet the bills. How we got to Accra and we met in many open spaces. But I was also inspired by the movement that opportunity began. I look around the room today and I see AfriLabs women especially. I remember our only women secretariat at the first AfriLabs gathering, and I see a few of them still around. And I'm very proud of what the women of Africa has been able to produce. I'll say this, that this AfriLabs gathering happening 10 years later is a testament that when all genders, male and female, of this continent come together, we can build something really miraculous. And at the heart of what we are discussing at this event is innovation. Thankfully, we are not discussing technology. I always say that. Because technology is a tool. But innovation is about people. It's about development. It's about solving problems. It's about accelerating where we need to get to as humans. It's about making sure that we humans solve the problems around us, leveraging the tools that we have with us. And that's why I'm excited about this gathering. As someone who has been fortunate to be part of several cycles of innovation, I know for sure that our focus on innovation is the right one. When we all come together, leveraging policies as well as partnerships, as the theme of this event is, we can do a lot of things. And even more importantly is that it's incredible what we can achieve when we do not care about who takes the credit. And I think that is what AfriLab is about. It's what Africa should be about. It's about the Timbuktoo spirit, about us coming together, solving those problems that challenge us, be it in healthcare, in agriculture, in job creation, even in our everyday lives. How do we solve the problem for the small businessman, the small and medium-scale enterprise, the minority or the micro businesses around us, to ensure that they can scale to achieve the opportunities that we want them to achieve? I recall when prior speaker spoke about Africa's opportunity to grow its economy to, I think, 16 trillion by 2050. I did a quick ChatGPT search to say, what will that look like in terms of per capita income? And then I said, it looks very small to me. Because Africa in year 2050 will have 2.5 billion people. So what should be our target? I then did some scenario search. You know, this is me, AI 0.5. Not very adept at it, but I was playing with the tool. If Africa wants to match the GDP of Thailand today, in year 2050, we'll need to be an $18 trillion economy. If we want to match the GDP of Singapore, which is quite ambitious, one of the richest countries in the world, we'll need to have a $258 trillion economy. So therein goes the range. What kind of Africa can we imagine? What kind of Africa do we want to build for ourselves? 18 trillion to $258 trillion. But that Africa is only possible if we all work together. And that is the unique opportunity we have here. As you think about these and you have a good thought around these and you meet other people around this gathering in the next few days, give it a thought. 18 to 258. That is the opportunity. Thank you, and God bless Africa.
A further round of applause, please. I think the former board chair made a strong point that innovation is the way in which we can get Africa to leapfrog. And I think that's an important aspect that we need to hold on to. We're going to go to more goodwill messages. And I have the distinct pleasure of welcoming a message from someone who is a leading global, a leading innovator in her own right. She's the founder and chief executive officer of HealthTech, which is a global enterprise application solutions provider. She's the board chair of Makerspaces, a pioneering tech hub supporting entrepreneurs across Cameroon. She's a globally recognized technology leader and an advocate for Africa's digital transformation. Ladies and gentlemen, she has been instrumental in advancing the continent's innovation and startup ecosystem. She's a former board chair and a current trustee of AfriLabs. She has also played a key role in shaping policy, advocacy, ecosystem growth for innovation hubs across Africa. And her visionary leadership continues to inspire inclusive digital development and entrepreneurial excellence across Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, I speak of Ms. Rebecca Enon-Chong, and she'll be joining us from a video address. So ladies and gentlemen, you might need to look at me a bit longer. The video will be coming on a bit later, but the train does not stop. We are going to go straight into the next panel that we're going to be hosting. Anita?
Thank you very much, my brother. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we leapfrog into what will be our first panel discussion, innovative financial solutions to catalyze innovation at scale. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, innovation requires fuel. And in this conversation, that fuel is underlined as finance. This session will explore how innovative financial instruments, blended capital, and public-private partnerships can unlock and scale Africa's innovation potential. It gives me great pleasure to invite our moderator for this esteemed panel. Sinazo Sibisi is the Chief Investment Officer at Timbuktu, where she leads efforts to unlock catalytic capital and drive investment into Africa's innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem. Now, her work at Timbuktu focuses on building sustainable innovation economies by bridging public and private sector collaboration to transform Africa's investment landscape and accelerate inclusive growth. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to bring to the podium, or rather, bring to the floor, the moderator for this outstanding panel discussion. Please warmly welcome Sinazo Sibisi.
Good morning. The world is changing, and it's changing fast. Some people view this as a poly crisis, but at Timbuktu, we view this as a poly opportunity. An opportunity to leverage our long track record and history of innovation on the African continent and fast track our growth into the first industrial revolution. It's an opportunity to leverage the largest free trade area in the world and take that from an idea into an opportunity. It's an opportunity and a reality. It's an opportunity for us to catalyze and leverage our gender and demographic dividend to drive economic growth at scale. But how are we going to do this? The first thing we need to do is to focus on how we can increase speed. Speed in terms of making sure that we can go fast and we can grow quickly. Since technological innovation is key to driving economic growth and a key factor in global competitiveness today, we knew that we needed to focus on tech and tech-enabled innovations in critical African sectors in order to get the scale and speed of growth that we need. In terms of scale, we also knew, looking at the successes we've had with mobile money, which currently holds 70% of the world's mobile money market, trillions of dollars in capital. We knew that we needed to focus on innovations that were able to cross borders quickly, were able to grow markets quickly, as opposed to traditional SMEs. And in terms of sustainability, we knew that we needed to focus on fostering those innovations that would address the most critical challenges facing the African continent. So speed, scale, and sustainability was what is at the heart of what Timbuktu is all about. But moreover, in order to actually drive an early pipeline of investable ventures that would give us the speed, scale, and sustainability we need, we knew that we needed to build an end-to-end ecosystem that would basically focus on early-stage R&D, incubating budding ventures, and scaling them up in terms of accelerating them so we could build a strong crop of gazelles that would be able to take Africa to the world. But most importantly, we knew that we needed to build a financial architecture that was fit for purpose. And in order to discuss this, I'd like to invite my fellow panelists to the podium. Can I begin with Clara Mungwalo, the Vice President of Karamo Capital. Clara, if you'd like to come up. I'd also like to invite Adebayo Adewolu, the CEO of Trium Limited. And last but not least, I'd like to invite Henry Obike, the Chief Innovation Officer of I&M Bank. Clara, if I can start with you. And as you answer the first question, please also tell everyone a little bit about yourself and what you do. So historically, investments in early stage ventures have focused essentially on the big four, right? The big four countries, Kenya, South Africa, Egypt, and Nigeria. And also in relatively mature markets, fintech, trade tech. So why is it important for us to go beyond these legacy markets, to go beyond the kind of low-hanging fruits and start making sure that we expand? And how does the Acceleration Fund that you're working together with Timbuktu on help us to do that?
Great. So good morning, everybody. So by way of introduction, my name is Clara Mongola. I'm a vice president at Karamo Capital Management. Karamo is a hybrid private equity fund that invests both in fund managers and also does direct investments across sub-Saharan Africa. So we currently have approximately north of 500 million under assets under management, of which we have invested in several first-time fund managers across the continent and have been able to catalyze up to $3.5 billion coming into these first-time managers. Now, Kuramo, through its affiliate Morame Capital, has been appointed as the fund manager for the Timbuktu Accelerator Fund. And the idea behind this is for us to spearhead and to grow catalytic capital across geographies and across industries, right? So typically, traditionally, investments have been concentrated in the big four. So, and this is just out of nature of the fact that, you know, more mature market, it's what investors understand, it's what investors know. However, we found that especially over time, we started off with fintech. Fintech was the pioneer of investing, especially in the technology sector. However, we found that for you to get certain benefits, especially with how the tides are changing, right? You have to start looking at many more markets. Yeah, you have to start looking at other markets that are critical, for example, in agri-tech, in climate tech, in health tech. We're seeing those to be very important sectors, and they're not only concentrated within these 4 countries. And this not only gives a benefit to an investor from a diversification standpoint, but also is able to cultivate the communities and the businesses in this new country. So the Accelerator Fund is going to, one of the key goals of the Accelerator Fund is to stretch its reach, to get into new geographies, to get into new industries, and to cultivate the ecosystem to be more conducive to several businesses out of the typical fintech and fintech and maybe only concentrating in the big 4. So that is the goal, and we're positive that the catalytic capital will have an impact across the board. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Clara. Bio, if I can come to you. Most venture funds on the continent focus on finding entrepreneurs with great ideas and helping them to grow great businesses. But TRIUM operates slightly differently. As the fund manager for the Timbuktu African Gazelles Fund, how are you breaking the mold, so to speak, in terms of how we actually catalyze innovation on the continent? And why do you think that's really important in terms of not following the traditional approach to venture finance?
Yeah, thanks, Inazu, and good morning, everyone. So I'm Bio, and I lead TRIUM. TRIUM is the digital venture builder vertical for what's arguably one of the largest financial and probably one of the most diversified financial services ecosystems on the continent. And we approach venture innovation and venture funding from, we thought we would do VC in the early days, but very quickly we recognized that maybe we needed to tweak the model. And eventually at about 2019, we landed at what we call the venture builder model. I mean, today it's a bit more common, venture studios and the likes. But back then we recognized that it wasn't just capital that was required. The capital was required, but we also required expertise to de-risk capital. We also required technology to power capital. And we needed an ecosystem that would help with put all this and the convening that would put all the necessary stakeholders to make ventures viable, such that the statistics of failure can reduce from 1 out of 10 to about 6, 7. I mean, from 1 succeeding out of 10 to about 6, 7, really succeeding and scaling sustainably. So that's how we've approached venture investing. And the AGF, the African Gazelles Fund, as the name implies, is to build not so much unicorns. If we get unicorns, we'll take them. But really more gazelles. And gazelles, as I'm sure most people in this room know, are those ventures that are in the between 100 million to a little less than $1 billion in capital. We think we would like a little more muscular gazelles than the lean ones. And our vision is this. This space, this segment, more than anything else, is what's necessary to power the continent. We need large corporates, we need large businesses, yes, but we need a lot, but those are few and far between. Or we need a little, within that segment of gazelles, we need a lot more and much more spread diverse geographically and thematically, right? So our approach is to identify and create ventures that solve significant market gaps. And in solving those market gaps, you create value, impact value, and of course, create returns for investors.
Wonderful. Henry, if I can come to you. As we know, access to capital continues to be a major challenge on the continent. How can innovative debt solutions address this challenge? And how can you work with Timbuktu, in particular in terms of being one of the issuers of Timbuktu innovation bonds, to help fill the market gap?
Yeah, thank you, Sinazo. Well, I work with INM as the Chief Innovation Officer. So for us as a bank, we started in the 60s, early 60s, and we started as a bank that came in with a family, putting funds together, trying to help, build a business, and also put friends and family and other businessmen together to see how we can create a business, and now the bank has grown to becoming a very big corporate institution. Now we have branches, subsidiaries in 5 African countries, Rwanda, Uganda, Tanzania, Kenya, of course, which is our group office, and of course we have an office in Mauritius. So for us, we've seen this as something we have practiced in terms of the founders of our bank. We know how difficult it is to put capital together. And it all started with, of course, angel investors, started also putting funds together, family and friends, and seed capital, So we said, well, since we have done it ourselves over the years, and we believe that the only way to grow SMEs and grow accelerators is to find a way of creating capital that can be low cost, and also capital that can be able to have a fund of de-risking, because everybody sees businesses, SMEs and accelerators as very risky, especially in Africa. And we said, okay, why can't we just put something together? Because if you're able to find creative way of creating capital, debt finance capital into long term, and to dilute the interest rates that we see across the board in Africa. Today, we see countries where interest rates are going up to 30, 35%, debt for debt. So we say, why not just come up with debt instruments that can be long-term, and debt instrument that can have some de-risking factors in it. We get philanthropists and maybe development finance institutions to help give first loss guarantees. So we decided to go into that space because we see that it's an opportunity to create long-term financing, and to also the risk appetite of pension funds that want to come into investment. We let them know that because of the likes of development finance institutions that have de-risked, that give us some form of de-risking, then we're able to work in it. So what we are doing as a bank, we are looking at how we are going to come up with a bond, debt instrument, call it in the Timbuktu Debt Innovation Bond, and see how we can raise this bond. And I think we'll be working on that for some time now. And we believe sometime early next year, we should be able to float these bonds and have investors pool funds together in Africa and give long-term funding to accelerators. In my time, sometime, I think 2-3 months ago, I had some session with a couple of the first cohort of the Timbuktu team involved in HealthTech innovation in Rwanda. And it was quite disheartening. You see the kind of money these people are looking for. Some of these guys have gone into bootstrapping and they put in their funds, and they have, somebody's looking for $100,000. And yet, if the bank says that you give me 17-18%, then it becomes very non-attractive to them. So we just want to see how we can help them. And as a bank, we're putting in these debt instruments to see how we can, support them and create long-term financing to help, de-risk and help them grow.
Wonderful, exciting stuff. I've been told we've got 10 minutes left, so this is going to be a lightning round. Clara, as you know, the African VC market is still relatively immature, with average returns and exits continue to be a challenge on the continent. So how is the Acceleration Fund going to address some of these challenges in terms of providing opportunities for early exits and also earlier liquidity?
Thank you. That's a very good question, especially, I'm sure all the investors in the room have, we all say cash is king, we all want money back. And with VC and especially early stage investing, you tend to find that the investment philosophy needs to incorporate, or you need to start thinking about exits from the onset. So, and this is from the point of coming into a company, developing the company, making them ready for follow-on investment, because that is how the exit will happen, making them, enhancing their governance, enhancing their business plan, making them more commercial, making them more viable. That is essentially how you enhance a business to be able to take it to the next stage of exits. And the role of the fund, I'll say, is twofold. So one, the support in accelerating businesses, in enhancing them to the next stage, making them more commercially viable to be able to get follow-on investments and consequently get their exit. But also the accelerator fund has both a catalytics capital side, with 70% of the fund going to be devoted to being allocated to a first loss tranche. And the idea behind that is that will serve as the catalytic capital to get other investors who want to come on board, also who are more bullish on such businesses, and also still maintain the commercial capital side with about 30%, and to be able to catalyze this through, be it DFIs, other private investors, etc. Because that is how essentially we would be able to get liquidity back for investors. So the goal of the fund is to essentially for us to demonstrate that we can achieve impact, we can achieve liquidity and get solid returns, mid-teen returns, and essentially ensure that this investment philosophy actually works and it actually pans out. So yeah, that's the goal, and hopefully we will be able to demonstrate liquidity, especially in early stage investments.
And secondaries?
Yes, definitely. And secondaries, we're actually seeing quite a bit in the African continent, with a lot of fund managers coming on board providing secondaries. And this wasn't there, a couple of years ago. And we're finding investors, more sophisticated, more understanding of secondaries, and being bullish even on early stage. So that is also another possible avenue that we can also potentially look to go down the route as to provide liquidity for investors in the fund.
Yes. Thank you. Bio. As we know, geopolitical shifts have resulted in a decrease in capital. And unfortunately, historically, African ventures have been highly dependent on international finance. So how is the African Gazelles Fund going to help us leverage domestic sources of capital, particularly in terms of private investment capital, to drive innovation on the continent?
Thanks, Inazu. As we've designed and set up the fund, we're very conscious of the need for patient capital. And we're also very conscious of the need for this to be sustained over the long term. So what working jointly with you, we've come up with an evergreen fund, which essentially means that it doesn't have an end date. But of course, we'll put in some mechanisms to ensure that the capital is patient enough for the catalytic impact and for the growth that we expect to see in the ventures we invest in or build out. And also in attracting LPs into the fund, we're very conscious of the risk appetite of those LPs, and those LPs having an understanding that while this is a commercial and commercially viable investment that will give returns, there's also an impact angle. And we need to get them to sign on to both the commercial, there needs to be alignment, essentially, between the commercial returns and the impact angle. And our sense is we don't need too many, but we just need a committed few. And that committed few, from the continent that is, we think we can scale this hurdle.
Excellent. I hope there's a few high net worth individuals in the house.
Yes, I'll be happy to see you.
Henry, over to you.
Yeah.
In terms of innovation bonds, how do you think they can also provide a further opportunity to tap into unrealized sources of domestic capital in the continent?
Yeah, I think for us, we say something that our African businessmen should please invest in Africa. Because the fact remains that a lot of businessmen, they, just like VCs, they just want to get funds out. And I said, if you have the mindset of an entrepreneur, entrepreneurs are different because they have impact at the end of their, commercial endeavor. So businessmen are different. So for us, we see if we are able to raise these bonds, these debt instruments, the opportunities that we have. I can imagine the way M-Pesa started. M-Pesa just started as somebody trying to meet a need of people sending money from the urban area to the rural area, and see what M-Pesa is today. So this is what the capability of Africa can do. So our African businessmen, the opportunities are huge. We just have to have, like he said, the patient capital, and the funds are available. Innovation is in Africa. I keep on thanking God that we are in Africa, because a lot of things are yet to be discovered in Africa. One of them, you go to Harvard Business School today, they are talking about M-Pesa. It's an African innovation. It started in Africa and is domiciled in Africa. It's now going into the business school, the case studies in business schools all over the world. So there are lots of those things coming up in Africa. If we can just be patient, believe in our people, invest in them, and I'm telling you, the opportunities are humongous. Please, African businessmen, this is a clarion call. We need you to believe in our people. We need you to trust in what we are doing. Africa is the bedrock of innovation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That brings us to the end of our panel, and I'd like us to give us a big round to our panelists, Clara, Bayo, and Henry, for your contributions. A big round, ladies and gentlemen. And we heard it. The opportunities are huge. The time is now. We need to believe in ourselves. We need to create African solutions for Africans' problems. Timbuktu aims to do that, and working together, we believe we can truly create a sustainable future that fundamentally resets the game in terms of Africa's global competitiveness. So we'd invite you all to join us, work with us. Together, we can do more. Thank you.
Thank you so much for an extraordinary conversation, something to keep us all on our toes and to keep us thinking, and to use this very unique opportunity to drive the agenda forward. Garakai?
Thank you so much. A round of applause for our panelists. And thank you so much, Anita. So as our panelists go down, allow me just to acknowledge the presence of someone who is not just a leader, but more or less they're the archangel of African innovation, a visionary, a guiding force for the continent's future, where creativity meets impact and technology becomes transformational. Ladies and gentlemen, the person I am speaking of is the Assistant Secretary General, Director, and also the Director of the Bureau for Africa for UNDP, Ahuna Eziakonwa. Please give a round of applause. She'll have an opportunity to address us a little later. Anita, back to you.
I'm right here. Thank you so much. And you're absolutely welcome to a woman that we like to call our big sister and our mother, pushing the agenda forward on all our behalves. And ladies and gentlemen, we're now ready for the welcome address by the UN Resident Coordinator right here in Kenya. Dr. Stephen Jackson provides strategic leadership to the United Nations system in advancing Kenya's sustainable development agenda under the UN cooperation framework. With extensive work, of course, and years of experience in peace building, governance, and international development across Africa, Asia, and the Middle East, Dr. Jackson has been a driving force in fostering partnerships between governments, development agencies, and the private sector. His leadership continues to promote inclusive growth, innovation, and resilience in support of Kenya's Vision 2030 and the Sustainable Development Goals. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to bring to the podium none other than the UN Resident Coordinator in Kenya, Dr. Stephen Jackson. You're welcome.
Anita, I can't possibly live up to the billing like that now, can I? I can only live down from there. What an extraordinary room. I have to tell you, this is the first time in a very long time that I have seen Conference Room 2 filled with this much energy, enthusiasm, and yeah, innovation. You can probably readily imagine the kinds of meetings that regularly take place in a room like this, and they don't have anything like the level of energy, creativity, engagement, enthusiasm, ideas literally bubbling up. So it's a real thrill to be here. Your Excellency, Vice President Osinbajo, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and let me add my words of welcome to all of you to this 10th AfriLabs Annual Gathering here at the United Nations office in Nairobi. And as Resident Coordinator for Kenya, it's a real pleasure to be part of hosting you in this space where ideas, innovation, and partnerships come together. You know, this year's theme, Africa's Innovation Future, Policy, Partnerships, Progress. It couldn't be more timely. Across this great continent, we're seeing an extraordinary upsurge of talent and creativity, and it's really alive in this room. We're seeing it in climate-smart agriculture, we're seeing it in green technology, we're seeing it in artificial intelligence, in digital finance, in youth-led entrepreneurship and enterprises that are together redefining what is possible. Redefining what is possible, yep, for this great continent. But for me, forgive me, more importantly, redefining what is possible for the world. Because here comes the controversial bit. You may, if you read the news, and I bet you all do, you may have noticed a certain, well, what shall we call it? Closing of minds in the part of the world from which I come. Closing of minds and retreat. Certainly in North America, well, that's on the front pages every day, but also in Western Europe. A retreat behind walls, behind barriers, behind tariffs. A retreat from cooperation, a retreat from collaboration. So much so that when I was home in Ireland last year, I got asked by quite a senior official what my advice would be to deal with a de-globalizing world. And friends, I was really stuck. It's not often an Irishman is lost for words. But I eventually managed to say, what do you mean, a de-globalizing world? I mean, maybe bits of the global north are flirting with deglobalization, but global cooperation continues apace. And it continues apace in Africa and from Africa. It continues apace in many other parts of what we used euphemistically to call the global south. So the notion of this retreat, to me, is one more instance of a kind of a northern myopia. And it's a myopia that is not shared on this great continent. This is not a continent that is retreating behind barriers or walls or tariffs. It's not a continent that is shirking its responsibilities or closing its mind or closing its spirit. And having all of you gathered here today in this otherwise not always very lively chamber is a real testament to that. It's a testament when I see heads of state in the room, online, I see ministers, I see investors, I see development partners, I see academia, but most of all, I see innovators. That powerfully signals to me that as Europe and North America maybe, well, what should we say? Should we be polite and say reconsidering? Africa is rising. And Africa is rising very fast. Seeing you signals the incredible strength of African innovation, and it signals the kind of collaboration that we need to maximize the innovation agenda for the next decade. Now, forgive me, now I do the partisan bit because I want to talk about Kenya. And there will be, what, 3/4 of you in the room who will resist it when I say that Kenya and Nairobi in particular have long been Africa's hub for technological ingenuity and entrepreneurial energy. UNDP, through its flagship Timbuktu Initiative, proudly co-hosting this 10th edition alongside AfriLabs. And I want to thank UNDP and ASG Eziakonwa for the leadership in bringing these processes to where they need to be here in Kenya. Innovation, of course, isn't an end in itself, but it is essential to achieving our shared goals. As you've already heard, Kenya's medium-term plan, number 4, which takes us through almost to the end of Vision 2030 and to Agenda 2030 at the global level, it envisages growth, job creation, industrialization, and the digital economy as key drivers. And for us in UN Kenya, a great degree of the work that we do to try and support Kenya and Kenyans is anchored also in innovation. Let me just highlight a very few examples of the kinds of thing we're trying to help Kenyans get underway. So UNESCO is leading our DigiKen joint program, which is all about supporting Kenyan entrepreneurs to incubate and launch homegrown Kenyan digital platforms. UNFPA, in a different sector, has helped to launch here in Kenya what we think is the world's first development impact bond in the area of adolescent sexual and reproductive health. It unites performance-based financing with the power of app-driven service and information delivery for 500,000 Kenyan vulnerable adolescent girls. FAO, with support from the European Union, they've managed already to digitize a significant number of the 47 counties' land registries here in Kenya, and the remainder are to be completed in the next few years. Now imagine, once you have the land registry fully digitized in Kenya, what that does for transparency, for accountability, but also imagine the kinds of apps, functionality, service delivery that you can build on top of a platform like that. And then last, but absolutely by no means least, through UNDP's leadership on Timbuktu and the Green Tech Hub, launched in Konza, Technopolis, UNDP is working with government and private partners to accelerate startups, driving renewable energy, climate mitigation, waste management, and related green technologies. UNDP has also helped establish the Africa Centre of Competence for Digital and AI Skills at the Kenya School of Government, training public sector officials in the vital digital tools that they need as Kenya's digital explosion continues. So all of our UN entities in Kenya, I hope, are helping Kenyans on that innovation journey. But I think I can risk saying, without controversy, that UNDP is leading from the front of the pack. And so, yeah, thank you. And so it really is going to be a great pleasure in a few minutes to hear from ASG Eziakonwa. I've known her for more than 20 years. I don't think she'll mind my saying that. As a tireless advocate for harnessing technology and demographic opportunities to drive inclusive growth. And it's a sincere thing to say that every time she opens her mouth, I learn something. So listen hard to what she has to say. And I'm equally thrilled, Your Excellency, Vice President Osinbajo, to welcome you back to Kenya. You're Timbuktoo's guardian. You're a tireless warrior for Africa's youth, for innovation and leadership. And I'm really delighted to have the chance in just a few minutes to listen and learn from your wisdom. So as I close, friends, let me just pick up, resonate with, and ruminate on a couple of the striking comments from previous speakers. Sinazo, you said the world is changing, and you're right. It's tilting right now towards Africa. This is Africa's moment. And so you invited us, as did a previous panelist, with the question, what kind of Africa do you want to imagine? But my closing plea to you, in the face of that, I hope, temporary faltering of the global north, that temporary closing of minds and spirits, my plea to you as a European is to say, what kind of Africa do you want to imagine? Well, don't stop there. What kind of world do you want to imagine? African solutions to Africa's problems? Sure. What about African solutions to the world's problems? Because the world sorely needs Africa's youth, energy, spirit, and innovation today and to shape our common future. Thanks very much.
Another round of applause. Thank you so much, Mr. Jackson. Pardon me. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to bring this august I would like to say audience to a great speaker. Now, he has served as a vice president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria from 2015 to 2023, and as Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice in Lagos State from 1999 to 2007, playing key roles in the formulation and implementation of government initiatives and policies for economic and judicial reform, social investments, human capital development, digital and creative economy, climate change and climate action, and energy security. Now, beyond his tenure in office, he remains dedicated to climate action, as I said before, and innovation advocacy through various roles, including board chair of the Climate Action Platform for Africa, co-founder of the Innovation Initiative Future Perspectives, guardian of the UNDP-led Africa Innovation Foundation Timbuktu, board member of the Mo Ibrahim Foundation and Nigerian Conservation Foundation, and member of the African Leaders Debt Relief Initiative. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, as you may know, when AfriLabs turned 10, he hosted the annual gathering in that year. Ladies and gentlemen, I do believe that spiritually he's the youngest person in this room, because no matter what, he shows up, he believes in us, and he believes in Africa. Please stand as we warmly welcome His Excellency Professor Yemi Osinbajo, Guardian, Timbuktu Africa Innovation Foundation, and of course, Senior Advocate of Nigeria.
Thank you very much. Everything you have said is true, including that I'm the youngest person here. Everything is true. Thank you very much. And let me thank the UNDP, especially Stephen. Thank you for being such a gracious host. Rennie, thank you. And ASG Ahuna, thank you very, very much for the kind invitation to be here. I must say that I'm extremely excited to be here at the 10th annual gathering of AfriLabs. And I still remember hosting AfriLabs back in 2021 in Abuja. where there were about, that was the 10th anniversary of the founding of AfriLabs, not the 10th anniversary of the gathering, which is this gathering. And I recall then there were, you know, a couple of hundred people, but the energy, even then, the energy in the room, just the sheer force of all of those people in the room. But today, when you look at it, it's almost like 1,000 times the energy, the buzz, the creativity, and everything that's in here is almost 1,000 times what we saw in 2021. So congratulations, everyone. I must say it's a real privilege also to be in this room with over 600, I'm told, and I'm told even closer to 700 brilliant innovators, creators, and partners from around the world. AfriLabs has been a very powerful ally of, it's been a very powerful ally of Timbuktu. And as you heard from Anna a few moments ago, they have walked this path with Timbuktu practically from the beginning. Timbuktu, as you know, is the Africa Innovation Fund, home to what may be the largest single fund supporting innovation ecosystems across Africa. So huge congratulations to the AfriLabs family for this milestone, and a special shout out to Anna Ekeledu, the unstoppable force leading this amazing movement. So I'm just going to reflect for a few minutes on the theme of the gathering, which is Africa's innovation future, policy, partnerships, and progress. Africa's innovation future, policy, partnerships, and progress. And some may ask, and some of the innovators here may ask, well, what's my business with policy? I'm not the one who does that or who makes policy. But I think it's very important that every innovator must also see themselves as policy advocates. And the simple reason is that you are the one who knows what is best in terms of the policy you want to see, and the policy that will shape the future of your business, the policy that will shape the future of your innovation. So I think there is every reason why each and every one of us here should be a policy innovator, a policy advocate. As a matter of fact, in Nigeria, I recall when we were still thinking about how to accommodate the payment systems, the very many payment systems that were showing up, the fintechs that were showing up. There was a group of young men and women, about 4 of them, who met with me, and we met with the Central Bank of Nigeria to take a second look at the sort of licensing regimes that we had in order to be able to accommodate the fintechs, who at the time, of course, were taking the lunch off the table of many of the banks. So it was these young innovators who ended up being the policy advocates who saw to it that our policies changed and we were able to accommodate fintechs. It was Fred Swanica, the founder of the African Leadership Academy, who observed that by 2030, Africa will have the largest workforce, will have a larger workforce, he said, than China. And by 2050, Africa will have the largest workforce in the world. 1 billion people will need to have, well, will need jobs. And that will be sitting on a ticking time bomb, not just for Africa, but for the entire world, if we are not able to find jobs and opportunities for this number. And let me add that a worse disaster is if that workforce is not trained in the relevant skills. But the numbers that he spoke of tell a simple truth also. And it is that Africa's future depends on innovation. And we heard Anne a moment ago saying that the bridge between potential and prosperity is innovation. And I thought that was so well said. But not just that. Increasingly, the future of global innovation will depend on Africa. And that simply is the truth. With the world's youngest and fastest growing population, Africa holds immense potential to leapfrog into new frontiers of technology, green growth, and digital transformation. And if we do, combined with the sheer force of numbers, it will be the greatest technological revolution that the world has ever seen. So the choice before us is unmistakable. We can either allow this vast reservoir of energy and talent to dissipate into unemployment and instability, or we can channel it into innovation that drives innovative growth and creates millions of jobs and positions. So Africa as a force shaping the global economy is more or less stuff that we should take for granted. But the real question is not whether Africa can innovate. It is already innovating, and that is why we have here with us, this huge number of innovators doing all sorts of amazing things. But the question is whether we will build the right environment for innovation to thrive, to scale, and to transform lives. Innovation clearly requires fertile ground, and that ground is policy, good forward-looking policy. We heard a moment ago about Kenya's M-Pesa. It's become a global fintech revolution because the regulators allowed mobile money to flourish rather than stifle it. And I just spoke a moment ago about Nigeria's unicorns. 6 unicorns in 6 years between 2 recessions because the central bank liberalized its licensing policy, creating cheaper licenses to enable payment systems and payment processing companies to function. Rwanda's Center for Fourth Industrial Revolution has been benefiting from forward-looking digital policies and is embedding already artificial intelligence, blockchain, and the Internet of Things into its national tech strategy. And there are so many great examples. But no single country or company can unlock Africa's innovation future alone. Partnerships, local, regional, and global, are the bridges that will connect ideas to impact. And this event, this AfriLabs Annual Gathering, convenes hundreds of innovators, policymakers, and investors here and online, and creating a continental platform for collaboration. And there's so many partnerships that are possible here. Partnerships are the arteries through which innovation circulates. And the results of these efforts are already visible. Africa's technological capabilities nearly doubled in the past decade alone, rising from 25% to 41%. Here in Kenya, Kenya's Silicon Savannah, as is described, is valued already at over $7 billion and is projected to reach $18 billion by 2032. Rwanda's e-commerce sector is growing at 15% annually, while Nigeria adds 1 new mobile subscriber every second. Across the continent, 570 million Africans are now online, more than double the number in 2015. These are not isolated achievements. They are signals of a continent in motion. But I think that the true multiplier of Africa's innovation future is the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, the largest trade area in the world by membership, encompassing 54 countries and a market of 1.4 billion people. The free trade area is not just about lowering tariffs It's about unlocking innovation at scale. It creates a single continental market where startups can scale beyond borders. A fintech solution that is born in Lagos can seamlessly serve clients in Nairobi, in Accra, in Johannesburg, and in Kigali. With its protocol on digital trade, the free trade area lays the foundation for cross-border e-commerce, digital payments, and data flows. The free trade area's digital innovation challenge is already helping small and medium-sized enterprises leverage technology to overcome trade barriers, reduce costs, and access markets. Jumia, Africa's largest e-commerce platform, expanded from Nigeria into 14 African countries, increasing its potential customer base by 41%, thanks to reduced trade restrictions. The free trade area is the infrastructure of innovation, transforming fragmented national markets into a continental launchpad. The opportunities it unlocks are immense across sectors. In agriculture, which employs over 60% of Africa's workforce, the trade area can harmonize standards for seeds, for fertilizers, and agri-inputs, enabling agri-tech startups to scale solutions across borders. Twiga Foods, an agri-company in Kenya, which connects farmers directly with retailers through digital platforms, is a model that can expand regionally under the free trade area, reducing food waste and stabilizing prices. The UN Economic Commission for Africa projects that agribusiness will be worth $1 trillion by 2030. And the free trade area ensures African innovators can capture that value. In health, where the continent faces a shortage of 1.8 million health workers by 2030, the free trade area's digital trade protocols can enable telemedicine platforms to operate seamlessly across borders. Ghana's M-Pharma, which manages prescription drug supply chains and now operates in multiple countries, shows how regional integration can reduce regulatory fragmentation and allow health tech solutions to scale continent-wide. Cross-border health innovation is, of course, vital for pandemic preparedness and equitable healthcare delivery. In renewable energy, Africa holds 60% of the world's best solar resources, yet it accounts for only 1% of global solar capacity. But the free trade area can remove tariffs on solar panels, on wind turbines, on batteries, lowering costs and accelerating adoption. Morocco's Noah Solar Complex, one of the largest in the world, demonstrates that potential. And with the free trade area, surplus power could actually be traded across borders through regional power pools. The AFDB estimates that achieving universal electricity access by 2040 will require $120 billion annually. And the free trade area agreements can attract that investment and integration, the integration that is needed to meet the challenge. But to truly reap the benefits of this technological watershed, Africa must take deliberate steps. And I think the excellent plan, a plan developed by Ambassador Lavina Ramkisson, who is an AU ambassador for AI and digital technology, lays out some of the crucial imperatives, namely that we must reduce the cost of internet and mobile data, because affordable access is really the gateway to the digital economy. A 50% reduction in data costs could increase GDP by as much as 2%. And this must be matched by building out broadband infrastructure to reach rural and underserved areas. We must also expand energy accessibility, investing in solar, wind, and nuclear energy. to reduce energy poverty, fuel industries, and create up to 15 million jobs by 2035. We must lower the cost of intellect by accelerating local education in science and technology, while also attracting international talent to drive innovation. We must ensure data reliability and transparency, building infrastructures that provide trustworthy information to local and international investors alike. We must coordinate regulations across the continent, simplifying frameworks so that businesses can scale more easily. And we should consider creating a resource or technological index focused on energy, on agriculture, natural resources, and technology. And this will be a progressive first step towards a fully fledged continental stock exchange. This, of course, is a lower risk approach and can build awareness, foster market infrastructure, and establish the credibility needed for deeper financial integration. Africa is not merely catching up, it is leapfrogging. Where others built at some point landlines, Africa went straight to mobile telephony. Where others are burdened by legacy banking, Africa pioneered mobile money. Where others debate the ethics of artificial intelligence, Africa is embedding inclusivity and responsibility from the start. And now with the AfCFTA and deliberate action on connectivity, on energy, on education, on data and regulation, Africa is building the world's largest innovation marketplace, a place where ideas travel as freely as goods and where diversity becomes a competitive advantage. So I think we ought to act with urgency. We have to invest with courage and collaborate with vision. Let's build an Africa where a young coder in Lagos, a farmer in Addis, and a solar engineer in Marrakesh are not isolated dreamers, but connected pioneers in a continental ecosystem. Because when Africa innovates, the world progresses. And when the world looks for the future of innovation, it will find it right here in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. A round of applause, please. Have we been challenged? Have we been inspired? A round of applause. I think the words that he spoke to us so deeply and so true that it embodies the very purpose of why we're here today. And to continue along that theme, we're going to share a video on Timbuktu. I'll ask the technical team to take it away.
Africa is building its future, and momentum is rising. Backed by UNDP, the Timbuktu Initiative is the starting line Africa's innovation awakening. A leap forward powered by African ingenuity, bold ideas, and youth-led solutions. The goal? To rally global partners to fuel Africa's next generation of changemakers with catalytic blended finance, enabling policy, and transformative investment capital. It starts with academia. Timbuktu is teaming up with African universities to build next-gen university innovation pods. These are dynamic spaces where young changemakers are trained to ignite ideas into impactful and sustainable solutions for their community. At the core of Timbuktu are 10 sector-focused hubs. From Lagos to Nairobi to the continent, built for real, hands-on support. From ideation to expansion, these hubs champion startups every step of the way. FinTech, agri-tech, mindtech, health tech, edtech, tourism tech, smart cities, green tech, trade logistics, e-commerce, and creative tech. Each hub powers African solutions, drives African growth, unlocks African scale, delivering real value, real impact, because success shouldn't be the exception.
It must be the expectation. Let's ignite the startup revolution from here to Africa's vibrant future. Are you in? Join us.
Are you in? Are you in? I don't hear you. Are you in? Absolutely, absolutely. I'll take this time just to acknowledge the presence of His Excellency Dr. Irungu Kangata, the Governor of Muranga County. I also take this opportunity to acknowledge the presence of Honorable Susan Mangeni, Principal Secretary, State Department for MSMEs Development. Now, I know that you have seen me on this and a few other stages as an MC and a moderator, but did I ever tell you that I'm a poet? If you haven't heard it, let me show off my skills a little bit. Could the technical team dim the lights? Could I also get a soft drum roll, please? Technical team, I need to impress here. Our lights have been dimmed. I need my soft drum roll. And I will begin. From the cradle of humanity, where dawn first kissed the earth, rises a voice that carries the promise of a continent reborn in purpose and power. She walks where challenges gather like storms, not to flee, but to bend thunder towards creation. She is a steady flame in a room of doubt, the compass guiding nations through complexity, the heartbeat reminding us that development is not donation, but destiny reclaimed. With grace anchored in wisdom and conviction carved from service, she lifts vision into movement and movement into impact. Her words ignite, her presence steadies, her leadership luminous. The archangel of African innovation, bearer of bold beginnings, guardian of possibility. Through her, the continent remembers its rhythm, its radiance, and its right to rise. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask you to rise to your feet and help me welcome to the stage Ms. Ahuna Eziakonwa, Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations, Assistant Administrator and Director of UNDP's Regional Bureau for Africa. A round of applause.
Who is this guy? And who is this person he's introducing? Good morning. Is it still morning? I think we may have crossed into the afternoon. Good afternoon to all of you, dear friends, excellencies. Prof, you have actually made my job quite easy because you spoke to the heart of our gathering here today. There's not much else that I can add that will make a huge difference, but speak I must, since I'm told here to give the keynote. Let me first greet our Kenyan hosts, Kenyan officials in the room. Thank you for welcoming us to Kenya. And then also to greet all of you and welcome you to the United Nations, and to thank our resident coordinator for doing the honors earlier. I believe AfriLabs Gathering has been happening for the past 10 years, right, Rone? And this is the first time, if I'm not mistaken, that you were hosted at the United Nations. And the UN is 80 this year. So please give it up for the United Nations. for recognizing value when it sees it, even if we're 80 years old. The UN is embracing innovation and all things AfriLabs. I think this is a really special moment, and I'm very proud that in UNDP we made this happen. AfriLabs has a DNA that is very much like the United Nations. And this is why we moved very quickly to choose AfriLabs as one of our founders for Timbuktu. You know, when I first met Anne, and I told her about Timbuktu, knowing that she's the executive director of AfriLabs, I was a little bit unsure what reaction I would get. Would she be cautious and think that this was competition for AfriLabs? Because Timbuktu at the time was promising also to be this big tent that brings together and supports innovation across the continent. I was pleasantly surprised by her reaction. Her face lit up. She was enthusiastic about the idea. And she said, this is exactly what's been missing in this space. And we want to embrace it. We want to support you. Count me in. And from then on, I was sold about AfriLabs, because I think one of the things that we need to fight on this continent is this fragmentation and everybody on their own lane, pursuing it alone as if you were the only one in town. But this feeling that we needed to come together, to collaborate, irrespective of when we started, who we work with, where we're based, that spirit of partnership, of collaboration, of building on each other's strengths is what I saw exhibited by the executive director of AfriLabs. I am here today to validate a few things, statements that have already been made. And I know I will be repeating what some other people have said before. One is that I am unapologetically, unashamedly passionate about this continent. And I'm tirelessly advocating for its youth and its young entrepreneurs and innovators. Wherever I find the space, the seat, the time, this is something that you will always find from me. And we're honored to be here in Nairobi, a city that is fast becoming one of Africa's greatest laboratories for innovation. And what a joy to be in this vibrant space. Stephen, you're right. The UN would not have seen this level of energy in recent times. This event has grown over the past decade with the continent's most dynamic convening of innovation hubs, of entrepreneurs, of investors, policymakers, and development leaders. This year's theme, Africa's Innovation Future, Policy, Partnerships, and Progress, speaks directly to the moment that we're facing today in our world, but also in Africa. But let me talk about Africa for now. Across this continent, a demographic wave of young, creative, driven, and somewhat impatient Africans are reshaping our economies.
New digital tools, green technologies, and data-driven services are emerging at unprecedented speed. But for us to actually convert this energy into transformative growth, into engines of economic development, we must build the right policies that nurture innovation, partnerships that unlock capital, and networks, as well as pathways that ensure progress reaches everyone, everywhere. So let me state a simple fact that you've heard a few times, a simple truth actually, that Africa has never lacked talent or creativity. Only systems to scale it. That is not just a sentiment, it's a fact. Across every corner of this continent, from Cape to Cairo, from Chad to Botswana, we have always had very bold thinkers, ingenious tinkerers, problem solvers, inventors, wealth creators even. Remember, the richest man that ever lived in history hails from Africa. What's his name? Mansa Musa. From where? Timbuktu. What we haven't always had is what every innovation needs. Infrastructure that is sustainable, financing that is accessible and affordable, policy that works, networks. But I'll put one above all of this: trust. Trust in the confidence, the determination of our young innovators. But that story is changing. And all of you in this room are proof of that transformation. Today, we are not here to marvel at Africa's potential. You know, I've grown up on this continent hearing how Africa is pregnant with potential. The birth is not a stillbirth. It's finally coming through. We're here to unlock it intentionally, systematically, sustainably, and at scale. At UNDP, we see innovation not as a siloed activity, not as a project, but as a driver of sustainable, inclusive development. In recent years, we have partnered with governments, the private sector, and civil society to strengthen digital infrastructure, to build public sector digital capabilities, and to support a new generation of African innovators. To scale up these interventions, we're implementing what you've been hearing about, a bold initiative called Timbuktu, to create space for young Africans to thrive, to birth trust in their commitment as allies of development work. Timbuktu is unlocking early stage risk capital. That's where trust is needed. We're fostering acceleration of good ideas and offering opportunities to help Africa's youth build world-class tech-enabled businesses. Our goal is quite simple, is to advance scale where it's been lacking, speed, and sustainability. And at Timbuktu, we are not trying to fix Africa's youth. We're not trying to manage them and control them. Our mission is to fix the systems, the power structures, the relationships around them, so that their ideas can grow legs, can breathe, and thrive. that those ideas can do what Stephen Jackson just said. An Africa that brings solutions to a world that desperately needs it. We're building 3 things, among others. 1, innovation infrastructure. Not monuments, but launch pads. From unipods in universities to thematic Pan-Africa scale innovation hubs across the continent, we're investing in spaces where ideas are not only born, but they're tested, they're improved, and they're given commercial value. Talent exists everywhere, we keep saying. Opportunity does not. Therefore, we're building that infrastructure to raise the floor, not just the ceiling. The second is financing, not aid, not donations, but smart catalytic capital that meets African innovators where they are and moves them forward where they desire to be. Into those deepened capital markets that create real, decent jobs. The Timbuktu fund that we talk about today exists to de-risk bold ideas, to attract co-investors, and to signal one thing clearly: Africa is investable. Africa is not waiting to be discovered, as we heard from Prof. It's here. It's showing up in every sector. And sometimes it's showing up more than others. The third is the enabling environment. No matter how brilliant an idea is, ladies and gentlemen, it cannot thrive under outdated policy frameworks. That is why our Policy Impact Unit works with governments and African institutions to develop startup acts to begin with, but also to insist that they are harmonized so that our innovators, enterprises, and markets can cross borders. Digital trade can have a life. That we have enterprises that are prepared for the AI era. That we can remove the obstacles in innovation's ways through a new generation of modernized policy infrastructure. And this is mostly because policy is not just the background music. It is the invisible hand that makes everything else possible. Even when you have the capital, you need the right policy regulations to make capital work. And so a big piece of what we want to achieve through Timbuktu is a transformation in the policy space that brings together the public sector, the private sector, the academic fraternity to really co-create something that works. And this is why the AfriLabs Annual Gathering matters. In this room today are not just stakeholders, you have solution makers. And that's what we want to emphasize. Here to co-create solutions, not just to talk. We have risk takers in this room. It's going to take courage, ladies and gentlemen. Cannot be business as usual. It's going to take people who are prepared to take risks, even at the risk of losing their own direct interest. It's going to take community builders, navigators of uncertainty, because we are facing an uncertain world. You in this room are what this continent needs more of, and what the world is finally paying attention to. And to the innovators, I say, keep building, not just for success, but for significance. To the funders, those who can bring the money to the table, look closer. The next big thing is not in Silicon Valley. It may be sitting right here in Nairobi or in Niamey. And to the policymakers, I say, let's move with urgency, but also with care. Your work can either unlock value or delay progress. The good news, Africa is not short of possibility. That is what this gathering gives us, hope, a sense that it is possible, shared purpose, shared language, and shared momentum. So let's agree on one thing, that the age of small bets and low expectations are over. African youth deserve more, and we owe it to them beyond the inspiration that we say. We owe them good, solid infrastructure. We owe them inclusion, not exclusion. We owe them systems that work, because Africa has never really lacked creativity. We owe it to our young innovators, because they are the generation that will fiercely resist what my generation has so far accommodated. Extraction. Making this innovative generation yet another extractive industry. We'll have a young generation that is moving forward with confidence, with a fierce sense of justice, with clarity on what is theirs and what must be retained on the continent. They have courage. I've met them. They are resisting being bought off. They are making sacrifices beyond their years. They are overcoming and scaling fences that are unimaginable. Can we just trust them? And to the billionaires on this African continent, and Prof, you know them. You are one of them. In spirit. We ask that they listen to the heartbeat of Africa's next new generation of entrepreneurs, of innovators. They need your money, your investment, equity. They're not asking for aid. African billionaires are not investing in this space. And that is why the Gazelle Fund we thought was important. Because I don't think it's because they don't want to invest, but because we have not made the case strong enough to them. Over 80% of the investment that's coming in to the startup space is non-African. And why we want that investment to continue to flow? Because everything out there came from here, for the most part. So we're not saying no to foreign money, foreign capital. But we think for us to unlock even more foreign capital, we need domestic capital to come to the forefront with confidence. Let me close by saying I am really heartened and I'm moved by your commitment, all of you in this room, by AfriLabs' openness to crowd in as many soldiers as this fight is going to need, to build a tent big enough for all of us to gather and make solutions that are worthy of this talent we're seeing out of this continent. Let us build it, let us believe it, let us do it together, because the Africa we want is the Africa the world needs. Thank you.
A round of applause for Excellency. As she takes a quick seat for a quick fireside chat, I call upon our board chair. A round of applause for her as well.
I'm feeling so inspired. I feel like I'm that 20-year-old that is still dreaming, that's going to create. I actually stalked you and I looked at your LinkedIn and I was going to read your quote, and you actually just mentioned it now. The African we want is the Africa the world needs. And that is so fitting. Everything you spoke about earlier on, it's real. This fight is real. It's not just a fight coming. It's not just a fight of the past. It's a fight of now. And today we actually have young people in the room. I'm only going to ask you one question. I know you need to leave. What message are you going to tell them? But a practical one. For the young innovators sitting here right now, that has got all these thoughts and maybe some bills he needs to pay and thinking about that and not being able to focus on their dreams. Can you give them a practical step, something real that they can take home with them and actually implement today? I know I'm putting you on the spot.
Right. I mean, mine is going to be a little bit philosophical because I'm not a founder. They probably know more how they navigate this space. But I want to say the one thing that I've learned, irrespective of what sphere, what sector you're pursuing, is that relationships matter. Relationships matter. They're worth more than gold. That relationship you're going to build with your lawyer, that relationship you will build with your accountant, with a government official, with your brothers, your sisters who are in the same space with you, that's going to mean everything, particularly when the going gets tough.
Thank you. I think that's enough for us, especially for the young people. Not just for the young people, I think for all of us. The relationships are important. That's our social capital. We don't have inheritance. We don't have anything else waiting for us. But it's the relationships we are building now. Let's build for the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, a resounding round of applause for two outstanding, distinguished leaders, both highly celebrated across the continent and globally. even though individually, collectively, we celebrate them. Ladies and gentlemen, we now have a quick word from, of course, the government of Kenya, just ahead of us moving into our various tracks. And before I invite her, immediately she is done, we move to grab a quick tea, quick coffee, and then just take that with you into your respective tracks. Please welcome with a resounding round of applause to join us here on stage, Honorable Susan Mangeni, who is the Principal Secretary, State Department for MSMEs Development, Government of Kenya. Please welcome the Honorable Susan Mangeni.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm so sorry. I was supposed to have welcomed you here, but I'm happy because at least you found a very good friend, the UN resident coordinator, who also welcomed you. So on behalf of the Kenyan government, allow me to take this opportunity to say we are happy to have you around, and we're very proud as a nation to host the 10th annual meeting of AfriLabs. This means a lot to us. Last week, we were playing host to COMESA, the 18th meeting of COMESA, meeting of the Business Council of COMESA, and the 24th COMESA meeting here. And we're happy. His Excellency the President, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, as we speak right now, he's at Konsa Technopolis. For all of you who are in this meeting, you are aware that Konsa Technopolis is one of the regional hub that is supporting tech innovation. He's actually commissioning the completed horizontal infrastructure as we speak right now. So meaning that this meeting here and engagement here is very central to Kenya as a country. And we as a country, I know Professor talked about the policy, we are actually at the forefront at ensuring that we put in place supportive policy environment. I just wanted to highlight 3 things probably just to share, because I know my time was supposed to be earlier, that we have key digital solutions, which I want to share with the rest of participants here, especially from Africa. For example, the Hustler Fund innovation, which is deepening financial inclusion at the bottom of the economic pyramid, so far offering access to affordable credit, integrated with savings and credit scoring system to more than 26 million Kenyans. We are having the ongoing Nyota project, which is still riding on the digital technology. And when we rolled out the application recently, as we speak, we have an expression of more than 3 million Kenyans, meaning that the only way we can get to share equitably resources and opportunities across the country is by leveraging on the digital platform. We also are looking at, we have also developed the Kenya Digital Master Plan of 2022-2032, and the key highlight is the provision of digital infrastructure. We're looking forward to expanding internet connectivity to rural areas. We are digitizing government services, and so far we've done close to 22,000, which you have onboarded, making it easy, especially for businesses to gain entry into the space. We are also, in terms of universal coverage and spread of digital superhighway, we've so far done more than 80,000 kilometers, half of it, actually more than half of it by the private sector and the remaining by government, and we target at least in the next like 3 years to go to have hit about 100,000 kilometers, ensure that every corner of this country is served by public Wi-Fi. Now, we have also come up with Kenya AI strategy to provide predictive analytics for smarter businesses, decision and market intelligence, chatbots, virtual assistants for customer service and marketing automation, AI-driven financial inclusion to improve credit scoring for small businesses, smart agriculture and manufacturing for higher productivity and sustainability, and strategy to also promote responsible AI adoption, ensuring inclusivity, ethnical innovation, positioning Kenya as a continental model in AI-led MSME development. So our call to action is, as we welcome you today, to discuss about where we are and maybe come up with new commitments. I know the speaker that just left the UN regional, I will say if it was in our normal local political language, you'll say the UN regional, rather president. When she quits UN being 8 years, but I don't know, we look at AfriLab being 10 years, and you look at that intergenerational relationship that is being woven out well, you will say that 10-year-old right now, these are what we call alpha generation. So how you are connecting the alpha generation to the elderly generation. So why that is very important, it just shows how UN as an entity is reaching out to the young generation and facilitating them also to catch up by creating an enabling environment. The alpha generation that we look into is a generation that are going to depend entirely on the digital technology. If you have a child of about 10 years today, if we interact with that child, they're being digital, and any solution, questions, everything they're talking about is very digital. So we like it when UN also leads the cause in seeing how do we make sure that the generation to come can find an enabling, not just policy environment, but supportive environment in terms of access to finance, access to digital skilling opportunities, so that they make good out of the digital opportunities that are being presented day by day in the African continent. Now, our call to action is see how do we harness the power of technology, creativity, and entrepreneurship to define Africa's innovation future. And we also wish to invite MSMEs, investors, partners, collaborate with Kenya's innovation ecosystem for shared prosperity. Last year, when the Timbuktu Initiative was being launched here in Kenya, I remember I was part of the participants, and we saw this as an opportunity, because if you're going to provide opportunities to more than 10,000 young people across Africa into that space, and Kenya being where we are today, and the way statistics show, we actually represent almost 30% of startup financing, which really, in the continent, which really looks good. So I want to say the future that we're talking about here in Kenya, it is very much real. You look at our young people, even those in the alpha generation, how they're working hard and how they're coming up. So mine is to welcome you here in Nairobi, Kenya. I know where we are now is everybody's land, but I know, of course, you are sleeping in the Kenyan territory, and to assure you that feel welcome, feel secure. However, it's also good to note that Nairobi city is the only city, probably in the world, that has got a natural national park. So when you move a few kilometers from here, you are likely to interact with lions, you are likely to interact with cheetah, you are likely to interact with elephant, you are likely, all those that you can. So make use of your phone, your Google very well, try to take a photo, because you might think it's a big cat, and yet it's a leopard, and it might not speak your language. So allow me just to say, as a country, as a government, on behalf of the President of the Republic of Kenya. Like I say today, he's also presiding over a very important activity that is perfectly in line with our conversation here today. Feel welcome. We look forward into working together, partnering, and seeing how do we take this forward. How does technology work for us? Thank you very much, and have a very, very informative conversation. Thank you.
Honorable Susan, thank you so much. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed your speech until you said, when I step out of here, I'll see elephants and cats and tigers. You know, I'm from the West, and you usually keep those far, far, far away. But thank you very much. It's important for us to mingle with nature. That is the power of Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for us to migrate into our various respective tracks. By way of knowing where you're going, Ministers of Trade, Investment, Digital Economy, you are in Conference Room 1. Catalytic Investment in Health, Conference Room 10. In Conference Room 4, we have Investor and Investment. In Conference Room 3, we've got Gender and Inclusion. And in the last conference room, which is right here, Conference Room 2, we've got Policy, Data, and AI. One more time, right here, you may stay here if you're for Policy, Data, and AI. Migrate kindly to Conference Room 3 if you are for Gender and Inclusion. If you are for Investor and Investment track, please go to Conference Room 4. If you are for Catalytic Investment in Health, please move to Conference Room 10. And for the Ministerial Roundtable, which is happening immediately, please migrate to Conference Room 1. Let's kindly do this swiftly so as to enable us to catch up with time as much as we can.
so that we keep it wise. We keep it wise. My name is John Omo. I work for African Telecommunications Union, and I've just been engaging an architectural engineer. Don't ask me what that is, because during my time, it was you are either studying architecture or studying engineering, and we didn't know the two as a combined subject. And so she asked me, what do I do? And I said, she pays me at the end of every month, because if you are an African, other than Eritrea and Seychelles, then you subscribe to the African Telecommunications Union, which is a specialized organ of the African Union in the field of ICTs. And so we work with governments, with the private sector, and with the civil society organizations, and of course, international community in terms of telecoms and ICT policies and regulations. In Africa, we also dialogue with the rest of the world in terms of ICT policies across the globe. And so in a month's time, we will be having the ITU hosting the World Telecoms Development Conference, and we'll be representing Africa there. Let me begin by thanking AfriLabs and UNDP's Timbuktu Initiative for bringing us together here in Nairobi to focus on what lies ahead for Africa in terms of our role in the artificial intelligence ecosystem. I have lost a large part of my audience, but I wanted to start my speech by what my speech writer did not include in my speech, which is a quotation from one of Chinua Achebe's last works. Chinua Achebe entitled that book, The Trouble with Nigeria. The Trouble with Nigeria. Of course, if you are a literature student, you know very well Chinua Achebe was not writing about Nigeria, but he was writing about Africa. And so he takes Nigeria as a miniature of Africa and says this: the trouble with Nigeria is simply and squarely a failure of leadership. There's nothing basically wrong with the Nigerian character. There's nothing wrong with the Nigerian land or climate or water or air or anything else. The Nigerian problem is the unwillingness or the inability of its leaders to rise to the responsibility, to the challenge of personal example, which are the hallmarks of true leadership. I gathered from the discourse that we had in the open session that the discourse that we should increasingly be having is the discourse about African youth and their quest for excellence versus the African leadership. Why do I say that? Whether you walk in the streets of Lagos, or the streets of Nairobi, or the streets of Johannesburg, we have been told of a large pool of African young people eager to learn, eager to invent, eager to inquire, and eager to experiment with lots of energy. And where do they channel that energy? That energy must be directed to something. Because if it's not positively directed at something, then it has to be negatively directed at something. And so, whether you are in Madagascar or Nepal, or in Nairobi about a year ago, you see young people agitating for better space to think, agitating for better place to innovate, agitating for a better place where we as leaders can be a lot more responsible and give them a hope that they are looking for. And so I'm deeply honored to share this stage with all of you who believe in the excellence of the African young people. Today's conversation is part of a wider effort that many of the industry leaders on this continent are engaged in to align digital, AI, and trade so that our startups can scale across borders under the African continental free trade area. It is a fact that artificial intelligence is now in a rapid and an inevitable path of progression. As that progression surges on, Africa's competitiveness in AI must rest on the strength of our digital foundations. Just over a third of Africans, as I speak today, those of you who are here are not are amongst the third. So just a third of our people are online. And so earlier on, we had lofty speeches of Africa's renaissance. But where is the 2/3 that are offline? Those are our parents, those are our siblings who are unable to access. And by access here, I mean access in terms of reach, access in terms of affordability, and access in terms of quality. And so 2/3 of our people are unable to access digital platforms and are outside the digital economy that today we know shapes our health, shapes our education, shapes our finance, and shapes our trade. That scale of exclusion determines then whether we can train, deploy, and benefit from AI at national and regional levels. Even as we appreciate that coverage and capacity are improving, the distance from the global frontier is still very wide. Between 2020 and 2024, the 5G coverage in Africa rose from 0 to 11%, while globally it climbed from 9 to 51%. Africa's rose from 0 to 11%. The global average was 51%. Over that same period, the 4G reached 71% of our population compared to 92% globally. And 14% of Africans still live beyond the reach of any mobile broadband network. And so these realities translate directly into missed opportunities, into opportunities for building data sets, opportunities for testing models, and to deliver AI-enabled public services where they are most needed. The International Telecommunications Union recently published a brief on Africa's digital development index showing that fixed broadband penetration above 25 subscriptions per 100 people appears only in 2 countries in Africa. That is Seychelles and Mauritius. Seychelles and Mauritius. Seychelles is basically an urban population, and same to Mauritius. So those are the only 2 countries where penetration is above 25% subscriptions for 100 people. And that means most other countries remain below 4 people, 4 per 100. While fixed networks remain limited, mobile infrastructure becomes the main delivery path for AI services. Whether those services can actually reach users depends less on enthusiasm or demand and more on whether mobile networks are strong enough, or if spectrum is available, if towers are built where they are needed, and if the backhaul connecting them is reliable enough to enable to handle data-intensive AI applications. And a very important aspect in this regard is that Africa's AI moment demands networks that can address and secure every device, that can handle any data sets and service that we want to run on it. IPv4, for example, was built for roughly 4.3 billion addresses and has reached its limit. Choosing steady IPv6 migration, which opens effectively large enough address space, is therefore key to our competitiveness. It lowers entry barriers for innovators, strengthens data systems with direct and secure addressing, and gives African firms the room to scale AI services across various markets. And that's why we at the African Telecommunications Union and ICANN are spearheading a project to accelerate IPv6 adoption in the continent, which is also the lowest in terms of the global averages. I'm therefore convinced that global governance models can be shaped to fit African context without losing sight of our own priorities. For that to work, however, we must deal with the persistent access and affordability barriers that skew participation. At the moment, digital inclusion is still highly uneven. In our region, urban internet use is at 57%, while in rural areas, it is just a paltry 23%. That divide determines who appears in the data that AI systems learn from, who has the means to build and train those systems, and whose realities and needs are reflected in the solutions that are being developed. Even where coverage exists, costs still remain quite high. On average, a basic 2GB data plan consumes 4.2% of a person's monthly income in Africa. And in the same space, fixed broadband costs rise to upwards of 15% of a household's income. And so, when many are priced out or left offline, the data used to train systems becomes narrower and rollout stalls before solutions can scale. Bridging these gaps is therefore a matter of fairness. It is also a matter of improving accuracy, increasing market size, and building the kind of trust that AI needs to deliver real impact. As one AI governance expert, Professor Robert Traeger, recently said at the second annual ITU AI Governance Dialogue, the secret of AI governance is benchmarking, benchmarking, and again, benchmarking. From this emphasis, we must build the appreciation that shared yardsticks allow each of us to be tested against standards that are global, where appropriate, and local, where necessary. It is my hope, therefore, that in some way we can have a dialogue that brings us to the common starting point that Africa's AI inflection point is a series of deliberate choices renewed through budgets, through regulations, through partnerships, and above all, through a strong African leadership that believes in the power of the young people to transform this continent. It is not a single moment, but a series of interplay, or an interplay of various factors that brought together through a strong leadership can galvanize the power of the young people to bring this continent to the level of development in AI that we truly deserve. When connectivity and affordability rise, when data systems reflect our societies, when standards and benchmarkings create trust, and when policy aligns with trade, adoption follows and competitiveness will grow. If we do this together, I believe we'll catch the wave and rise above that wave. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Mr. Omo. Unfortunately, because of time, I won't invite any questions for now. And thank you very much for honoring us with your presence. Karibu sana. Let's give him a one round of applause. So now the flow is back, and I will want to quickly move into the next session, which is the track lead, that is Africa Innovation's Future. And to inspire our conversation, I'll welcome two individuals who are strengths in their own right. First, she's an entrepreneur on a mission to turn young dreamers, especially fierce female founders, into business dynamos. She's a coach, mentor, trainer, facilitator. I present to you the Senior Partnerships Manager at AfriLabs, Felista Aku. Let's clap for her as she comes to the stage. Next in line, with over 20 years of wrangling data innovation systems and a PhD in turning workplace chaos into culture change, the CEO of Ubulu Africa, and we had a very quick chat with him, who's rewriting the playbook on how innovation labs can build capacity. And he also doubles up as the policy and research harmonization at Timbuktu. A round of applause for Dr. Odiong Akpan. He'll join us in a few.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope we are having a good day so far. It's such a delight to be with you this morning. Oh, Dr. Odiong is here. Okay. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to this policy, data, and AI track at the 10th AfriLabs Annual Gathering. This session sits at the heart of our collective ambition to build an Africa where innovation is not only powered by creativity, but also guided by intelligence, policy foresight, and shared data. As we gather here today, as policymakers, researchers, entrepreneurs, and ecosystem builders, we stand at a pivotal point in Africa's digital journey. AI is no longer a distant concept. It's already shaping how we learn, farm, trade, and govern. Data is also no longer a byproduct. It's the currency of the future. It's the foundation that determines whether innovation thrives or withers. At AfriLabs, we believe that the future of African innovation lies in true connection. Connection between technology and policy, between local knowledge and global standards, between innovation hubs and government institutions. This is why this track exists, to bridge the worlds of innovators and policymakers, to convert ideas into frameworks, and to ensure that Africa's AI revolution is ethical, inclusive, and truly African. Today's conversation will explore how we can shape policies that enables rather than restricts innovation, build data ecosystems that respect privacy while powering growth, and foster AI solutions that are human-centered, equitable, and sustainable. We are not here merely to discuss the future, but to design it. And as we do that, we must remember that the African context matters. Our challenges are unique, but also our opportunities. We have the chance to create governance models and reflect our values. So as we begin this conversation on this track, I invite every one of us to bring our full selves, your insights, your questions, your bold ideas. Let's ensure that the outcomes from this track influences not just our conversations, but also the decisions that shape our nations, our startups, and our collective future. On behalf of AfriLabs, I welcome you once again to the Policy, Data, and AI track. Have a wonderful one, everyone. Bye.
Okay, good afternoon once again, and welcome. My name is Odiong Akpan, and I'm here as a co-facilitator of this particular policy data and AI track. And to do that, Felicita has very graciously shared with you a speech that helps us understand why we are here. I would be letting you know, go down to brass tacks to understand why we are here, how this came about. So in the past about 3 to 4 years, this particular track, when AfriLabs started creating tracks, this track was created, the Policy Data and AI track. And why was it created? Because of the recognition that regardless of everything we do and talk about when it comes to tech, innovation, and entrepreneurship, the enabling environment would be the key linchpin. And so this track was created to get opinions and conversations from people who play in all of those spaces. Policy, data, because data is what we would use to realize all our technology objectives. And AI, which is the new frontier, the very popular thing. That is what exactly everyone wants to hear. And so putting all these people together, we believe that we will be able to create magic. And then this year, as you've heard since the beginning of the day, UNDP Timbuktu has jumped into the fray. And Timbuktu, as you very well know, is an initiative to promote, support, and expand innovation and entrepreneurship across the continent. And so when Timbuktu came into the fray, the policy impact unit of Timbuktu designed the track elements to ensure that when we are done with this today, we will go back to our different countries, our different regions, and wherever we play collectively to ensure that we move innovation and entrepreneurship along. Specific focus on the policy and enabling environment with data, because we use a lot of LLMs and all the ChatGPTs and that we use are using mostly data that is not African. So we need to be able to ask ourselves how we can harness African data for collective prosperity. So we'll have that conversation and hopefully leave here with insights and also action. So I'll just run through the agenda real quick. As we're here, of course, we've had the keynote address by Mr. John Omo, and of course, he inspired us. Right after this, we'll be having a fireside chat moderated by Dr. Lawrence. That would be from policy to practice, lessons from AI regulation and sandboxes. I implore you to listen, and after they have had the conversation, you need to ask questions so that we all will be part of the conversation. Thereafter, we would have another panel discussion moderated by Tracy Okoro Isaac, who is the powerful engine behind the mobilization arm of the Timbuktu Policy Impact Unit. And that particular panel session is around building African AI champions. We need to nurture African AI companies to compete globally in AI software and hardware. Again, don't take it for granted. You may have heard about AI and all of that. What we're trying to do here would be to tie all of these different concepts together and ensure that when we leave this gathering, we would all empower everyone around us for collective action. So the second panel discussion would be around building an AI alliance for Africa, collaboration, trust, and responsible growth. And then thereafter, we would have the Timbuktu Policy Workshop. We've been having a lot of conversations around policy, and with Timbuktu, what we do with policy is two-pronged. On the first level is mobilization. We need to speak to all the innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem players to understand what issues they have, how best policy can help them, and also move this data to the continental level. So at the harmonization level, what we do is try and influence policymakers, governments, regional economic communities like ECOWAS, SADC, etc., and also governments and ministerial policymakers. And what we try to do with that harmonization and mobilization arm is to ensure that we take data, influence policy, we make policies, we get data as well. So it's going to be a loop. So that's the kind of conversation we'll be having during the policy workshop. And thereafter, we'll have a presentation of the African Policy Toolkits, and that will be done by Mr. Kenneth. He's the board member of AfriLabs as well, board member at large. I think, former board member at large, I presume. And thereafter, we'll have a networking and closing. So that's the agenda in summary. My ask to you would be that you take this as a very important session. It's going to be participatory, so ask questions as much as you can throughout the fireside chats and the panel discussions, and essentially have fun. Thank you very much, and welcome.
So thank you, Dr. Pan, for playing the ground for us for this particular track. So as we can see, we have just under 45 minutes to the lunch break. So I'll quickly introduce the moderator for the next session, Dr. Lawrence Ndero, who is the founder, JHub Africa. He's also currently the chairman of the Department of Computing at the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology, as well as the founder of JHub Africa, a digital innovation hub that serves as a living lab and sandbox for advancing Africa's digital transformation. So just a fun fact, JKUAT, Jomo Kenyatta University, was the holding mother for we were constituent college of JKUAT. I work at the Strathmore University, so we have a good relationship going way back. So karibu sana daktari, and you facilitate this particular model, this particular panel. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank all the people who have spoken. I think this time round, I want to introduce and invite my panelists. We have been asked now to talk about the real things that are happening on the ground, and I'm very excited to do that. My name is Dr. Lawrence Nderu. I'm the chairman, Department of Computing at JKUAT, and also the founder of JHub Africa. So very happy to start on by introducing Mr. Gideon. Mr. Gideon, I would be happy if you could come in front here. Yes, Mr. Gideon is the founder and executive director of Area AI. I also want to welcome Rinian Njeri. Rinian Njeri, please welcome. Rinian is a policy and partnership maverick. Welcome, Rinian. I also want to introduce, this is a difficult name, but you allow me to pronounce it as I can. Princeria, head of Pan-African Institution, Google Government Affairs and Public Policy. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want us to engage in this conversation and try to get what each and every person is doing, and get to the gritty details of what is happening. So I want to invite you first, Princeria, to just tell us who you are and what you're doing in this space. Thank you.
Panel of the wise, can you hear me? Here, okay, how many people use YouTube? Nobody. There we go. Some of you are on it right now, very good. How about Android? How many have Android-operated cell phones? Okay, I'd say about 80% of the room, very good. So that means you are using Google products. I lead Google's engagements with the multilateral organizations across Africa. And so my job is basically to do policy at scale. How do we support governments and the development of the tech ecosystem across Africa? Yeah.
And you'd have told us how to pronounce the whole name.
Princelia Boagay. I'm from Côte d'Ivoire, so we're going to teach you some French today.
Perfect. Perfect. Lilian?
Hi, everyone. My name is Lilian Jerimbuthi from and based in Nairobi, Kenya. I wear so many hats because it's a very political choice and statement for me, because I believe as a young African woman, it is imperative for me to be multidimensional, multifaceted. So when you go on my LinkedIn, you'll see so many things there. But they all come back to being Afrocentric, Afro and Africa first kind of perspective. And I'm also a global disruptor. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Gideon Olanrewaju. I'm Nigerian. I'm a serial social entrepreneur. I lead a couple of non-profits and consulting firms, but most prominent amongst them is called Area High. So Area High design AI-powered tools and technologies to ensure access to education for teachers, children, and refugee learners across Africa. So it's great to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Gideon, and thank you so much, panelists. I think the first part I want us to pursue is the issue of AI regulation and African context. And specifically, this relates to, for example, how do we regulate data? How is the way it is done in Kenya, the way it's done in Nigeria, Rwanda? Are there trends that we are seeing? Are there gaps? So I want to hear from you, Prince Area, on this. What is the perspective of Google and across Africa, or for example, engagement in terms of the key regulatory trends that you see, and perhaps what are the gaps or weaknesses, specifically touching to AI and data? Thank you.
Yeah, so first I just want to take a step back. So Google's been on the continent for about 18 years now. We have an office here in Nairobi, Kenya. If you're here, I would love to invite you to come visit us. We have an AI research center based here. So we have African engineers, scientists working to develop AI solutions here in Kenya, as well as in Ghana, where we've had an AI research center since 2018. So we've been in this space on the continent in AI development for quite a while and have seen a lot of challenges, but also a lot of opportunities, especially as of late. The African Union Commission is doing a lot of work to try to harmonize the continent's work in policy development on AI. So we've seen the Continental AI Strategy. There was the Global AI Summit in Kigali, Rwanda earlier this year in April, where there was the Africa AI Declaration that was signed. That was a powerful document, a powerful pledge by our leaders about their commitment to making sure that Africa is not just a consumer, but also an innovator of AI. And I think that's really, really important. The AFCFTA Secretariat similarly adopted a digital trade protocol that has an overarching framework on emerging technologies. So I say that to say that we have what I would call is a good backbone for AI policy governance across Africa at a continental level. What we need now is more to be done at a national level. And what does local adoption look like from a policy perspective? We have a lot of gaps around data. I think the ATU Assistant Secretary General mentioned it. We don't have a lot of Africa-centric data. Okay, we have our 2 AI research centers here, but how many others do that? You know, and if the whole data sets that are available, African data is really a subset of that. The challenge with that is that language creates a barrier. If we don't have access to language, if we don't have African data sets, then we are potentially being left out of the conversation. So I think there's a lot of work to do as well around inclusivity, around data sets, developing African data, developing skills for the youth, but also for the non-youth, like myself, those who are former youths, youths in spirit. All of us in society have a role to play. AI is here now. It's not coming in the future. So how are we using AI to do our work on a regular basis? How are we preparing our policymakers to even understand the language about what's happening? So a lot, and I think we'll talk about this later when we talk about capacity building, but on skills, infrastructure, innovation, and on regulation, there's a lot to do at a national level for adoption.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. I think from what I can pick from that is the relevance of data. There is a pick on that aspect, and there is also efforts at the local level to try and improve, because at continental level, perhaps a lot has been done, but that level. And I think I want to bring Rilian on board here and ask, these policies that we build, even at the continental level, at local level, are they just aspirational? I mean, do they eventually produce some level of policy agility that we can say we are building solutions at the level of national to improve unemployment, which is a major component, or opportunities for our youth?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Lawrence. Thank you for that. As someone who's also been in the policy kind of track, work engagements across the continent, and also working across so many youth-led organizations, grassroots level movements as well, the CSOs, from a global development perspective, the policy bit of things always seems very, very cute on paper. They always sound cute, polished, you know, on paper, up until we now start like following through to the very tail end of execution and implementation. And from my standing point on what agility from a policy perspective actually has proven to work time and time and again is whether we have accountability coming at play and also seeing that execution towards the very, very tail end. And in this sense, are we not only running it from a point of a marathon or a sprint kind of perspective, but how are we measuring and evaluating the policy implementation bit of things? So for me, agility not only looks from a perspective of it's really just cute and this nice to have kind of paper at the end of the day, be it a policy brief, be it a policy recommendation, but how do we follow it through to the very tail end of accountability, execution, implementation, and also measuring its impact and also its successes. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Radian. I think I want to extend that and ask, we have an innovator here, of course, and all of us are playing that role. Gideon, I see that being involved in the policy and you're building in innovation and you're building solutions perhaps where you are and the company that you build and the solutions that you're building. How do you see that scaling from Nigeria coming, for example, to Kenya? How is the policy and regulation affecting you, or how does it play a role?
Thank you so much, Dr. Lawrence. I think that's very definitive, and I think it's very relatable to so many innovators in the room. I think I'll summarize my response in 3 different clear themes. The first one is acceleration of brain drain. The second thing would be innovation paralysis coming from the angle of regulatory uncertainties. And then the very last one would be about policy illiteracy. Now, I'll start from the last one, policy illiteracy. How does, regulatory frameworks affect or impact innovation? The first thing to mention is that, for example, when you have innovators who are building tools applicable in rural communities like myself, we do not have a clear understanding of what is contained in the policy. So, for example, a farmer who is building an AI tool for crop monitoring on the ground in Nasarawa in Nigeria do not have an understanding of clear data protection guidelines that is contained in the policy. And that is very applicable because many of these policies or regulations are written in very, ambiguous languages, very hard to break down for the common innovator, which I think is a term that applies to almost everybody. So one key thing is to ensure that we can build structures and systems that facilitates a fundamental understanding of some of the policies that we are developing in trickling down to local innovators, including people like myself and the people that we're building for. The second thing is regulatory uncertainties. We know for a fact that in Africa right now, there is no single comprehensive AI regulation that harmonizes the acceleration of AI development and adoption across the continent. I don't know if I'm speaking the mind of everybody. Many African countries are just trying right now to develop local AI regulations. Right? And because of that, there are so many innovators who do not know what is permissible in the current dispensation of the country where they operate. What applies in Nigeria locally might not be applicable in Rwanda, for example, or in Kenya. And that blurry line, and I know the African Union Continental Strategy for AI has just been recently passed, but the adoption is still very much slow. The translation into action on the ground is still very much impeded. That needs to, accelerate to ensure that we can fast track the speed of innovation. The very last one is the innovation paralysis, brain drain, I mean. We are seeing a lot of innovators who are moving, not internationally, even continentally, into countries with clearer AI frameworks. I won't go too far. Myself, my organization is trying to register a startup in Rwanda because we believe Rwanda as a country has a clear AI framework, for example, as compared to Nigeria. And that is no shade, to my country because we are also doing a great work. We just recently passed the Nigerian Startup Bill or Act. We are also trying to come up with our own AI strategy. But innovation cannot wait for countries to be able to, to pass their laws
People want to build fast and go to places where, the policies are clear-cut. So it is really important that that is being addressed to ensure that innovation is not, stifled, particularly at the local level.
Thank you so much, Gideon. And I think I want to follow up on that question because you have cited Rwanda as an example of a country where there is some level of regulation that is clear. But you have also pointed out the challenges that you have in Nigeria. I want to hear, is that an example of a good regulatory sandbox, the Rwanda one? Is it a classical example of what would be?
So I can categorically talk about Rwanda sandboxes, but I think I have two solid examples of sandboxes that have practically worked in Nigeria, in Africa. And I think it's important to point that sandboxes are very significant examples of how you can enable innovation generally, allowing people to build in a text environment before you scale onto a bigger stage. And I think the first one is one from Kenya. We've seen the fastened pace of micro-lending applications. And I think the sandbox in I think it's called CPX or something like that, in Kenya allows people to test faster and ensure that they can ship many of these micro-lending apps, to ensure that people can use them. The second one is from South Africa called Piopa, and I think it's around EdTech design and implementation. It allows, innovators on the ground to design applications that are, accelerating access to educational resources on the ground, using student data while still understanding how to abide by data regulation. So they are able to use already made data and, using the understanding of how the data regulation works to build their product even before it launches. And it gives an example of how so many countries as well can put in place regulatory sandboxes that allow innovators to build faster, build publicly, and be able to, get the contributions of government, users in, ensuring that their product can work well by the time it ships for general adoption. So those are two good examples of countries that I know that have existing sandboxes that allows innovators to build and ship their product faster.
Thank you so much. I think, Lilian,